Hey everybody, it's your favorite biologist, Amos, and I'm coming to you from my house with some beautiful wildflowers. And I want to tell you about a game that I like to call Name the Bees, Count the Bees. Name the Bees, Count the Bees. This is a fun game that I play all the time, and I want to tell you how to play it. Really good for little kids. It's really good for adults. It doesn't matter what age you are, because Name the Bees, Count the Bees is going to teach you about our native bee species, those bees that are native to Florida. And so to help you with this game, I'm going to tell you a few facts first and give you some tips. First fact is that in Florida there are more than 316 types of bee. 316 types of bee in Florida. One of those, just one, is the European honeybee. What? Just one bee is the European honeybee? I thought all bees were honeybees. Well, no, actually. The vast majority of bees in this world are not anything like the European honeybee. The majority of bees, like the bees found in Florida, are solitary bees. They're little female bees that live by themselves, and their homes are burrows in soil or in trees or other dead wood. Just little tiny holes that the bee goes inside of to lay eggs and to raise its young. One bee per burrow or per hole. And that's what most bees are like. The honeybee is this anomaly. The honeybee is not like other bees. It makes a big hive with thousands of bees and it makes honey. These other native bees, they don't make honey. And because they live by themselves, because they don't make honey, they're not very protective of this hive. They have nothing to protect, and so they don't really sting. And when you do this bee game, being stung is not something you should worry about. You know, don't ever grab a wild animal and squeeze it. Like if you grab some of these wild bees, you could get stung. Maybe they can sting, but they're not protecting a hive, so they're not aggressive. And so these things that you've learned about bees, honeybees, set those aside, and I want to invite you to learn about native bees. If you want to find native bees, really you should go look at some native plants, some native wildflowers, because these native bees, they like really specific things. The way that I describe it is funny bee, funny flower. So if you want to find a funny bee, you need a funny flower, and you know those geraniums out front, or you know, some of these really common landscape plants, they're exotic and they're from some other country, and well, the native bees don't really like them. They like what they're used to out in the wild, and wildflowers work really good. If you go to a native plant nursery and you plant native wildflowers, you plant those funny flowers, you're going to get funny bees. So I'll just set that up that way. You need to look at the different flowers, and you'll find special bees, special to each kind of flower a lot of times. So here I have behind me some goldenrod that I planted. This is seaside goldenrod, found out in the wild in coastal areas, but grows great in my yard, and it really attracts some bees. So I'm going to tell you how to play Name the Bees, Count the Bees. Okay, so to play Name the Bees, Count the Bees, first step, go around, and look for funny flowers, and you'll notice right away, you'll start to see some patterns about these bees and these flowers. Some flowers, no bees on them. Other flowers are going to have a lot of bees. Ooh, okay, and then you zoom in on that. Then name the bees. And what I mean by name the bees is give the bee a descriptive name. That's what I like to do. A descriptive name. Start to describe this bee. Okay, that's a fat bee with yellow stripes and little wings. That's its name. Fat bee, yellow stripes, little wings. And then you might see another bee that's similar. Fat bee, yellow stripes, big wings. It gets its own name. And you'll go down like this and you'll see different bees. You can give them different names. Some of the things you'll see, common like bee types, you'll see frequently bees with metallic colors, like a bright metallic blue or a bright metallic green. That's very common. You'll see yellow stripes, very common. You'll see white stripes, very common. You'll see furry bees. You'll see bees with no fur. These are common attributes. You'll see big things and little things, also common. Long antennas, short antenna. Big wings, little wings. Skinny, fat. So these are some common attributes that you'll see, and you give them descriptive names, and then that helps you. You'll start to differentiate the different kinds, and you'll have all these names for these bees on this certain flower. Good flowers, a lot of times, they'll have 7, 8 different kinds of bees on them, and with these descriptive names, you can tell the difference. Oh, and you know, one other note. Wasps are really closely related to bees, and they share a lot of similarities in the way they look. When we look at this goldenrod, we're going to see both bees and wasps, and I count them both. You know, I name them both, I count them both. Wasps often have a really pronounced waist. It'll be like long and skinny, whereas the bees will frequently be like right next to each other, and sometimes, I don't know, they're just, you know, the top and the bottom are almost like touching. So you'll see a sort of a division there, but it's not really big, you know. Bumblebees are like that. They're big, fat bodies, and you know, the waist is not pronounced. So we're going to see bees and wasps. Wasps are really interested in nectar, which is a sugary substance that flowers produce to attract these bees and wasps and flies and butterflies, all these things that we call pollinators. They produce nectar. It's a sugary substance. And wasps really love nectar. Bees, on the other hand, they like nectar and pollen. Pollen is that yellow, powdery stuff on flowers. You know, it could get on your hand, but you'll notice bees are collecting it on their furry bodies. And bees feed their pollen to their young. So if you see bees and wasps, you probably have nectar and pollen. If you see only bees, it's probably pollen only. If you see only wasps, it's probably nectar only. We're going to see both bees and wasps on this seaside goldenrod. It's producing both nectar and pollen. So now that you've named them all, you can differentiate them, you can tell them apart, and you can count them. So as you're naming them, you'll say, okay, that was 2 bees, that was 3 bees, that was 4 bees, and you'll go down the line, and so the fun part for me is to see how many bees I can get up to. And the really exciting flowers are those that you get, you know, a dozen bees or something like this. It might not be all at one time. You might visit the next day and get a different set of bees, or it could be all at one time. You know, set your own exciting goals, and maybe you're trying to reach that all-time high number at one time, or it could be an all-time high number over a longer period, over a lifetime. Name the bees, count the bees. That's the game. I find it to be a lot of fun. Let's give it a try on my goldenrod. These are seaside goldenrod, funny flower. I bought from a native plant nursery. By the way, 2 really good ones in our area, Sweet Bay Nursery in Parrish, and Florida Native Plants in Sarasota. Look them up. Go out there, buy some flowers. So I bought these seaside goldenrods. They're fantastic with bees. Let's play the game. Okay, everybody, we're playing Count the Bees, Name the Bees. Now I can tell right away, here's some wasps on this. You can call them all bees if you'd like. The point of the game is to name them. So here's a little guy. He's got a yellow butt. Sorry, a red butt. This wasp has a red butt, narrow waist, narrow wings. That could be his name. Red butt, narrow waist, narrow wings. 1. We have another little fella here. Now I happen to know this is also a type of wasp. Look at that. Skinny wasp, yellow stripes. That could be its name. That's 2. Skinny wasp, yellow stripes. 2 bees. And actually 2 wasps, but let's not get too crazy with these rules. Coming over to this second area. Here's a little fuzzy guy. This is a type of bumblebee. We're going to call him Little Bumble. Little Bumble. He's a cutie. Or she's a cutie. It's a she. That's 3. 3 bees. Okay, we have more skinny yellow stripes. Skinny yellow stripes. And that's skinny yellow stripes. Those are very common here. So we're up to 3 bees. Now here's a 4th bee. It's actually a wasp, but here's a 4th one. And it is narrow yellow stripes, but it's a little bit fatter in the abdomen, in the the bottom part. We're gonna call this yellow stripes big butt. That's a beauty. We have a metallic green bee here. Oh, he's got big amounts of pollen on his back legs. That's where bees like to keep their pollen, on their furry back legs. If you see something collecting pollen, you know it's a bee. Even if it looks kind of like a wasp. That was a really kind of a beefy green metallic bee. That's number 5. We'll call him Beefy Green. Here's a little wasp over here. Ooh, look at how he holds his wings out to the side like cow horns. And he's got some orange marks on his abdomen, his bottom there. We're gonna call him Orange Bottom Cow Wings. I think that's number 6. 6 bees. Now, I've only been looking at this for a few short minutes. We have 6 bees. What a fun game. Here's another bee with a white face. Actually a wasp. It's got a little white face. Let's call that white face wasp. Interesting wasp with a narrow white stripe. And look, he's almost got 2 waists, it looks like. We're gonna call him 2-waist white stripe. Here's another wasp. This looks like a common paper wasp. This is the wasp that, makes a paper nest and likes to sting people. You'll notice it's very interested in this flower and not so much in me. So I'm not afraid because it's not defending a nest right now. It's having a drink. It's having a drink of nectar. But if you didn't know it was a paper wasp, we might call this Big Red. It's kind of a beefy wasp. It's red. Oh, look, there's a little stripe on the top of its abdomen. You know, its rear parts there has like a belt on. We might call him Belted Big Red. That's a neat one. Okay, everybody, that was a quick look at Name the Bees, Count the Bees. In that short period, we counted up, what was it, 6 bees? Now, many of those were wasps. That's okay. I kind of group them all together, you know. The whole point of this is to learn and you see new things, right? And what you'll find is Florida is filled with a fascinating variety of different kinds of bees and wasps. They love flowers, and it's going to cause you to love flowers a lot more. Once you learn these things, you'll start to notice the patterns. You'll say, wow, that flower, it always has a lot of bees. I think I like that flower. And you'll probably plant that flower, you'll grow it at home. Maybe you'll plant a lot of those flowers. With this seaside goldenrod, it sends out seeds every year, and I get more plants every year, and I love it more every year. And it's just loaded in bees. I love that. It's a fall bloomer, and you'll start to notice, oh, in the fall, I can go find this kind of flower. In the spring, I can find this kind of flower. You'll also notice times of day could be better for different bees. In the morning, I see this kind of bee. In the evening, I see this kind of bee. And so what you find is when you can name things, you start to learn those things, you start to learn other things, and it builds on itself. It all starts with naming, describing, and that's kind of the foundation of science. Observation, description. Hey, if you start counting things, wow, you're gonna learn some things. Name the bees, count the bees. This is a game that I love, I made up, and I really do play it myself. Why not? So, please, play the game, have some fun, enjoy this time, fall weather, great time to play this game. And if you haven't done so already, like us on Facebook, Conservation Foundation of the Gulf Coast. Visit our Instagram page, Conservation Foundation GC, or our website, conservationfoundation.com. Here you can learn more about how we save land and how you can help.